the cold streets of Moscow, in 1821, a man was born who would go on to explore the darkest corners of the human soul. His name was Fyodor Dostoevsky. But this is not just the story of a writer. This is the story of suffering, death, madness, and redemption. From the beginning, Dostoevsky's life was far from easy. His father was strict, cold, and often violent. His mother was kind, but she died when he was still young. And then, something even darker happened. His father died suddenly, possibly murdered by his own servants. Imagine growing up surrounded by fear, loss, and uncertainty. This was the world that shaped Dostoevsky. At first, he didn't choose literature. He studied engineering in St. Petersburg, trying to follow a stable path. But deep inside, he knew. He wasn't meant to build machines. He was meant to explore minds. So he turned to writing, and his first novel, Poor Folk, made him famous almost overnight. People called him a genius, but his real story hadn't even begun. Dostoevsky became involved with a group of thinkers who criticized the government. They talked about freedom, reform, and change. But in Russia at that time, thinking freely was dangerous. In 1849, everything collapsed. He was arrested, thrown into prison, and then sentenced to death. On a freezing morning, Dostoevsky stood in a public square, a firing squad in front of him. This was it. His life was over. Seconds before the soldiers fired, a messenger arrived. The order had changed. The execution was fake. It was a psychological punishment ordered by Tsar Nicholas I. Instead of death, he was sent to Siberia. For 4 years, Dostoevsky lived in a prison camp, surrounded by murderers, sleeping in freezing conditions, living without freedom. This was not just prison. This was hell. But something changed inside him. In that darkness, he began to understand people. Not just their actions, but their pain, their guilt, their suffering, their need for redemption. And this would become the heart of his writing. When he returned, he was no longer the same man. He didn't just write stories anymore. He wrote human souls. In Crime and Punishment, he created one of the most famous characters in history, Raskolnikov, a young man who commits murder, believing he is above morality. But after the crime, the real punishment begins. Not from the law, but from inside his own mind. Guilt, fear, madness. Dostoevsky shows us something terrifying. The worst prison is your own conscience. In The Idiot, he introduces Prince Mishkin, a man who is pure, kind, and honest. But instead of being respected, he is mocked, called an idiot, because in a broken world, goodness looks like weakness. In Demons, he warns about dangerous ideas, revolution, extremism, chaos. He shows how ideas can destroy people, and even entire societies. And then, his greatest masterpiece, the Brothers Karamazov, Doubt and God. It asks one of the hardest questions ever. If God exists, why is there so much suffering? And if he doesn't, then what stops us from becoming monsters? But Dostoevsky didn't just write about suffering, he lived it. He suffered from epilepsy. He would collapse suddenly, his body shaking uncontrollably. He lived in constant fear of the next attack. He was also addicted to gambling. He lost money again and again, falling deeper into debt. At times, he had nothing. No money, no stability, only pressure. And yet, he kept writing, desperately, sometimes finishing novels just to survive. But then, something changed. He met Anna, his second wife. She helped him organize his life, control his finances, find peace. For the first time, he wasn't alone. In 1881, Dostoevsky died in St. Petersburg, but his ideas never died. His work influenced some of the greatest minds in history. Friedrich Nietzsche called him the greatest psychologist. Sigmund Freud studied his understanding of the human mind. Even today, his books are read all over the world. Why? Because Dostoevsky understood something most people don't, that humans are not simple. We are full of contradictions, good and evil, faith and doubt, love and hatred, all at the same time. He believed that suffering is not meaningless, that pain can lead to growth, that even the worst person can find redemption. And maybe that's why his stories feel so real. Because they are not just stories, they are mirrors. So the next time you feel lost, or broken, or full of doubt, remember this man, a man who stood in front of death and came back to tell the story. Fyodor Dostoevsky didn't just write books. He revealed the truth about being human. And that truth is darker and more beautiful than we think. What can we really learn from a man who faced death, lived in prison, struggled with addiction, and still became one of the greatest writers in history? The answer is simple and powerful. Everything. The life of Fyodor Dostoevsky is not just a story of literature. It's a guide to understanding ourselves, our pain, and our choices. Lesson 1. Suffering can build you, not break you. Most people see suffering as something to avoid, but Dostoevsky teaches the opposite. After standing in front of a firing squad, after years in a Siberian prison, after losing everything, he didn't become weak. He became deeper, stronger, wiser. In novels like Crime and Punishment, suffering is not just pain, it's transformation. His characters don't grow through comfort, they grow through struggle. And maybe that applies to us too. Your hardest moments might be the ones that shape who you become. Lesson 2. The real battle is inside you. Dostoevsky understood something most people ignore. The biggest war is not outside, it's inside your mind. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov commits a crime, but the real punishment isn't prison. It's guilt, fear, madness. Dostoevsky shows that you can escape the world, but you can't escape yourself. So if you want peace, you don't fight others, you face yourself. Lesson 3. You are responsible for your choices. One of Dostoevsky's strongest beliefs was this: you are free, but that freedom comes with responsibility. In The Brothers Karamazov, he explores deep questions. If there is no God, is everything allowed? If nothing matters, why be good? These are dangerous questions because they force you to realize no one is controlling your actions. You choose. Every decision you make has consequences, and you must live with them. Lesson 4. Even the worst person can change. Dostoevsky lived among criminals in prison, murderers, thieves, broken people. But instead of hating them, he tried to understand them. And he realized something powerful. No one is completely evil. In his stories, even the darkest characters have a chance at redemption. They suffer, they regret, they change, and that gives us hope. Because no matter how far someone falls, they can rise again. Lesson 5. Kindness is rare but powerful. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin is kind, honest, and pure. But people laugh at him. They call him weak. Why? Because the world is not used to real kindness. But Dostoevsky shows something important. Kindness is not weakness, it's strength. In a world full of lies and selfishness, being good is one of the hardest things you can do. Lesson 6. Ideas can destroy you. Dostoevsky was afraid of dangerous ideas, ideas that sound powerful but lead to chaos. In Demons, he shows how extreme beliefs can destroy people and societies. People become obsessed, control, they justify violence, and suddenly, they are no longer human. The lesson? Not every idea is good, no matter how convincing it sounds. Think carefully. Question everything. Lesson 7. Humans are complicated. Dostoevsky didn't believe in simple people, because humans are not simple. We can love and hate the same person. We can believe and doubt at the same time. We can want good and still do bad. In the Brothers Karamazov, each character represents a different side of human nature. Logic, faith, emotion, all fighting inside one family, just like they fight inside us. Understanding this makes you wiser, because you stop judging people too quickly. Lesson 8. Your weaknesses don't define you. Dostoevsky had serious problems. He was addicted to gambling. He lost money. He made mistakes, a lot of them. But he didn't let that define him. He kept going. He kept writing. He kept trying. And in the end, he created masterpieces. So your mistakes, they don't end your story. They are part of it. Lesson 9. Meaning comes from struggle. Dostoevsky believed that life without struggle is empty. That meaning comes from fighting, from searching, from questioning. His characters don't live easy lives. They suffer, they doubt, they break. But through that, they find something deeper. Purpose. Final lesson. Face the truth about yourself. Dostoevsky forces you to look at something uncomfortable. Yourself. Not the version you show others. The real version. Your fears, your thoughts, your dark side. Because only when you face that truth can you grow. Conclusion. Fyodor Dostoevsky didn't just write stories. He exposed the human soul. He showed us that suffering can make you stronger. Your mind is your biggest battlefield. Your choices define you. And no matter how broken you are, you can change. His life proves one thing. Even in darkness, you can find meaning.